Everyone, welcome back. Welcome back to Woke Wednesdays. Allie will be right back. But thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Second hour of Woke Wednesdays. We're addressing the ties between and connections of capitalism to mass shootings.
Just want to rewind a little bit on electoral politics.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Herson. I am the host of Woke Wednesdays, and tonight we have a phenomenal. There's a group of young people on the show who are very knowledgeable, very bright. So we'd just like to reintroduce yourselves, please, just for the people.
So my name's Eric. I'm a now junior, doing my undergrad at FIU. I'm majoring in sociology and anthropology and minoring in political science.
My name is Clara. I'm majoring in sociology, double majoring in gender studies, and minoring in philosophy.
I'm Ryan. I'm a junior, and I'm majoring in political science.
And last but not least, we have...
Hi! I'm Allie. I'm a theater major at FIU and also a member of One Struggle, Smash Capitalism.
There we go. All One Struggle, really cool student organization on campus. They have an Instagram, which I tagged them in. I'll try to take a picture of them later if they let me. And I'll tag them again so y'all can follow them and show up to their events. They're super cool people. So before we ended, we were talking about elections, electoral politics, voting, and how that is potentially not maybe the best. I don't know if the best is the right word.
Yeah, I think we have to be critical of electoral politics, and I don't think any of us here would condemn someone for voting and be like, no, don't fucking vote.
Do y'all vote?
I don't.
Actually,
I do.
I did.
But okay,
I voted.
But I mean, we have to recognize the limitations of electoral politics. We've been talking about capitalism, and yes, it's an economic system, but it's also a system that it organizes itself politically so that it suits its own interests. So, I mean, we were talking earlier about how, we occasionally get these democratic rights, the 8-hour working day, the Civil Rights Act, which were all brought about not by people going out and voting, but by political action, people being out in the streets and demanding change.
And even then, there's a lot of arguments saying that it's suited to benefit
Right.
Yeah,
capitalism,
well,
right?
and that's the
Charter
thing.
schools came out of that. And,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we may get these democratic rights, but it's kind of funneling back into the same economic system.
That's why we call them bourgeois democratic rights, because these democratic rights, even freedom of expression, even freedom of assembly, things that are very basic, they are part of the functioning of the capitalist system in liberal democracies like the United States. So it is part of a way that keeps the system going, to keep us pacified. So whenever we get some crumbles thrown at us, we need to understand that they are crumbs.
Yeah.
They're not the whole bread.
Yeah, you gotta throw in a bone like a dog fucking
Right.
every 20 years.
And we need to understand that Republicans, Democrats alike, as much as independent parties, are a part of this game. No one is isolated. No one can exist beyond capitalism at this point. And all candidates will ultimately sell us out, because their role is to keep capitalism going at any cost. And for example, I just thought of a very tangible example. People talking about how revolutionary Bernie Sanders is. Let me remind y'all that Bernie Sanders' platform for giving free tuition, right? That's one of his agenda points, right? Making tuition free. If you have a very competitive global market, and we need a more trained working workforce.
Yeah.
So it is even these most progressive people are doing that to uphold capitalism. They are bound to that.
Well,
I want to ask a question, because yes, right, about Bernie Sanders, but what we're not saying is, or correct me if I'm wrong, there's like a bad intentions behind this. Like there's this deep, Bernie Sanders is doing this because it'll only further the capitalist. We're not trying to get into the psychology of the person.
No.
Right. What we're saying is that whether intentionally or well intentioned or not, inevitably this is what happens. Mm-hmm. Right. It's not that people are colluding. I think that's the word. We're not really saying that, or are we?
No, I mean, the best intentioned people, I think, can try to run for office, but like we said before, capitalism has a lifeblood and an imperative of its own, where even if you wanted to be the most progressive in the world and be president of the United States, the economic and political system will not allow you to do that. And I think time and time again, we've thought, you know, like, if we just vote this person into power, if we just get this person elected, things are going to fundamentally change. And we've been disappointed over and over and over again. Obama deported millions of immigrants. Millions. I think maybe more than Trump has.
Deported more than any other president.
Yeah, so I mean,
And there's like foreign policy in the Middle East, like toppling Libya.
Incredibly
Yeah.
imperialist.
The jobs he created were like low wage jobs. There's like still not a
it's,
problem with those type of people.
so it's not that, you know, like, presidents have been terrible people, like, that's my opinion, but it's not even necessarily that. It's that they exist to serve this economic system, not the interests of the masses, not the interests of the
Great
working
point.
class. They serve to uphold this system for the ruling class.
And so if you're catching the second hour, you didn't catch the first hour, I'll be posting this on YouTube. It's saved to the Instagram story for 24 hours. But we're saying we're kind of we are building on the last hour that we just kind of spoke about. FYI, if you're just joining us, it's interesting that I was at a fraternity meeting last night, and we were reading. We give out scholarships for young kids to go to school, and I was reading the applications that they write, and 17-year-olds are writing. The question was, why do you want to go to college? Why do you want to? And well, you know, it's very competitive out there. You know, I need to get a job, so that's one of the reasons I'm trying to go to college. They're perpetuating. They're buying into the capitalist state. They're complicit. But I think a good point is that these are children. They don't know. To them is so one of the parts of capitalism is this. What's the word I'm
It's
looking
like
for?
ingrained ideology, you know?
Yeah.
Where you don't even realize that you exist to, you know, actively compete and also help further that system.
And it creates a need for something, right? This is a real need of people, right?
People have to survive.
They have to survive, right? And again, this is part of how just, sickening and insidious capitalism is. It creates an issue, and then for you to buy into it, and then it's. So I want to make that kind of clear, because when we talk about capitalism, the way we've been talking about it is, it's not like we're blaming, like it's not like, oh, you're this, you're that. This is kind of a monster of its own that it's kind of, I don't know what the words are.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I keep saying this, but, you know, capitalism is not individuals, it's an economic system. So even if somehow, you know, like, we removed every politically elected official, it would resurface, you know, it would propagate itself again. And the same issues would resurface.
And that is regardless of the identities of the people who are in power, because one of the narratives that we've been seeing in these identity-based movements, like the Black movement, the feminist movement, it's not enough to put a feminist in power. It's not enough to put a Black person in power. Look at what Obama did. It's not enough to put a person from a marginalized sector of society in power, because they're going to reproduce the same structures that oppress everyone.
Yeah, and these ideas are incredibly pervasive, even within anti-capitalist groups. These ideas can still sneak in. They've become a part of our workings, our psychology, and it's important to kind of question those ideas.
I mean, I think that goes back to the point that the young lady made at Yale's event about communism, and how capitalism just seeps into these communist states. Which that's a whole other episode. Proy T People is saying capitalism saves lives.
Whose lives?
Obama did not deport more than other presidents. Fake news. Capitalism benefits the working class. It seems like it's just kind of a troll.
Regardless of the actual numbers of you know how many people he deported, it's important to understand his structural role, right? The role of Obama and any president of the United States as a player in the international system of capitalism. I'll give you an example, and this is empirical fact. You can look this up. When Obama left office and when Trump took over, Obama left him a letter. Every president leaves a letter to the next president, right? And in his letter, Obama wrote to Trump, "Do not forget that your role is to sustain the international order that arose after the Cold War." to sustain American sovereignty. So it doesn't matter if he's black or white. It doesn't matter if it's a woman or a man. Their role is to uphold American sovereignty. It's to uphold capitalism at its finest on a global scale. And it doesn't matter if Hillary Clinton had been elected. She would have been bombing the fuck out of Syria. The only difference is that she would have had a nail polish in the button, pressing that string. The only difference.
Yeah.
That's the point that we're trying to make. It's not about the identity of the people. It's about their structural role in this economic
That's
system.
a great point.
And I mean, yeah, we're talking about an economic system which we said before is inherently based on exploitation, theft, murder, and slavery. So you can make, a more diverse group of people who are doing those things, but still fundamentally, that's what drives this economic system.
Yeah.
So you're making like a friendlier, more inclusive system of exploitation, like
Diversity in the
Yeah.
workplace.
I love that. That's
Corporate responsibility.
beautifully said. So another question. What's the keys in deconstructing capitalism? So let's kind of. I remember at the event that y'all had, y'all kind of talked about like ideas of beginning to think about alternatives. So maybe we could just kind of talk a little bit about that as we're kind of wrapping up.
Yeah, I think kind of like the natural course of the conversation when we get this point is like, all right, what's the alternative, right?
Yeah.
We see that the Democrats are already knocking our doors trying to get the newest candidate elected. We see that's not going to work. We see NGOs or nonprofits. They're likewise organizations that are upholding the capitalist system because they are channeling dissent. They're channeling public frustration into ways that the system already accepts. Capitalism already accepts NGOs. It already accepts nonprofits.
And makes them profitable.
Yeah.
And makes them profitable.
NGOs, what are those?
Non-government organizations, right? So people who are really wealthy, for example, they can get tax deductions from donating to charities, to charities that fucking help people in Haiti, which is a super imperialist thing. It's not actually helping. It is maintaining the capitalist interests, right?
Yeah.
So all of these organizations are compromised. And how do we how can we go about proposing our alternative that functions to grow us and not grow them, right? That starts by organizing. That is a word that we throw around a lot, like organizing. What does it mean to organize? It means to start at a very grassroots level, maintaining very democratic relationships, and trying and learning how to do this. Because no one is born knowing how to organize, how to, okay, let's function in a group. Let's try to understand how our objective reality works. It's not something we are born knowing, right? We have to learn how to do that. So we need to get together, and we need to realize that our power ultimately doesn't lie in ballots, but it lies in our schools, our communities, our streets, our neighborhoods, and we need to foster that. We need to make that flourish.
Real quick, People is saying, see how they skip over any comments that question their ideology. This illustrates their group thinking. He's saying this is sad. I actually did read some of your comments. I don't know if you heard them or not.
Yeah.
And I think we addressed something you said, didn't we?
We definitely did. And also, if you're in Miami, you're more than welcome to be on the show, and we can have this conversation too in person. And maybe some of y'all can be on the panel too. I mean, so that type of commentary. I mean, I apologize if you feel that way, but I definitely read some of the stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, yeah, like regardless of your perspective, what we're advocating here for is a criticism of capitalism and also organization. And like Clara said, we are ideologically trained to think that our political power lies in a voting booth. Mm-hmm. Whereas historically, realistically, our political power lies in collectivity, in organization, and not, we're members of one struggle, which is an organization, but our focus isn't, we want to get 1 million fucking members. We want to create organizations in every context. Students, workers, environmentalists, feminists, we all need to be organizing in our interests because the capitalist class is not doing that for us. Our electoral system is not doing that for us. So if we have a hope and a prayer of confronting this and working in our own interests, we need to be organizing, we need to be raising consciousness, and we need to be creating relationships among different organizations so that when something does happen, we can work together in our collective interests.
In my organizations too, we're also kind of saying like across racial lines, across gender lines, across everything, with the goal being that, I guess, anti-capitalism, right? It's kind of under this mantra of anti-capitalism.
Yeah.
So you're saying that so real quick, let me read this comment. GDO Pazo was saying, imagine living your life putting down students exercising their freedom of speech by posting irrational and off-base comments on Instagram Live video of all things.
Nice job.
That was smooth, very smooth.
Love you.
Don't know who you are, but thank you. So yeah, so when you're saying that
Collectivity?
No, yeah, I guess collectivity. Organizing together, come together. And as we've said, this individual competition amongst each other is part of, I guess, the consequence of capitalism. So, which could be one of the reasons it's so hard just to kind of, I guess, come together on something, right?
And even the point about like convincing people that voting is not going to bring a structural change. It's something very hard to do, because what you're asking them to do is to trade something that is very concrete, that they see, voting, like someone gets elected and something happens, to something very abstract, which is like organizing. Like what's that?
And does not have immediate real world consequences in most contexts, it's a leap of faith, honestly, to even question our economic system and consider that we could confront it, or that there could be an alternative that we could come to collectively. It takes a lot of creativity and imagination, and it is fucking scary, but I think ultimately we are seeing that our planet is dying. We're seeing high levels of suffering and exploitation. We're seeing Nazis and fucking fascists taking the streets. So from my perspective, and I think most people who are members of this organization, we have no choice. We have to organize. We have to fight for our own interests, because nobody else is fucking doing it. Yeah. And we need to be there, not just for, students, not just for people in the US, but internationally, and building those relationships internationally and supporting each other.
And one thing too is that, so just for the record, I agree with everything that y'all are saying. But I do think that, and maybe this is the way I've been indoctrinated, is that I do believe that maybe we could do both too. I do believe you can put a Band-Aid on the way to the hospital to get rid of this gun wound, this bullet wound. Mm-hmm. I do believe that while we know that this critique of electoral politics is necessary, and maybe voting Bernie in might not make it worse, right? And we can also be organizing, right? We can
exactly. It's a struggle on two fronts, I'm not gonna say, don't, we're not gonna vote anymore, and we're gonna, just work and organize until fucking revolution, because that's unrealistic, like there needs to be reform, there needs to be changes, within the political system to get us to a point where we can reasonably, have social and political power. So I don't think any of us are, fuck voting, don't do that, or denying it as a strategy, but recognizing its inherent and fundamental limitations, and that it will not bring us a world that is different fundamentally, or a world that works in the interest of most people.
You can elect Bernie Sanders if you want, but you need to understand that Bernie Sanders is not going to do away with capitalism. That's our job. That's our task, our historical task. We can't delegate that responsibility to anyone. And it's very easy to have this kind of defeatist approach, to be like, if nothing's ever going to happen, it's impossible to overthrow capitalism. Do you think it was easy to put capitalism in place?
Yeah, it took a long time.
Before capitalism, we had fucking feudalism. Yeah. And capitalists fucking, they tried so many fucking times to make this shit work. It wasn't, smooth and, capitalism is this perfect system that just fits into the world. They fucking had to die to make this happen, to put capitalism in place. Yeah. And, if people back in the times of, even recently, fucking slavery, if people thought, people do now, nothing's gonna happen, we would still have slavery today.
Well, slavery was a choice.
And now we know that.
Yeah, apparently.
I think you didn't know.
I think it's a really important part that we need to talk about when we go to voting is how it affects people on an international level. how like we see foreign countries try to vote in socialist representatives and try to enact like a democratically socialist government, but oftentimes are met with resistance from countries like the United States. Like I've come from Chile. My parents came from Chile, and we elected like a democratically elected socialist government. And if you even look at the documents that Nixon was like staying in the CIA to destabilize the country like economically first, and then develop a coup there to topple the government, which then supported a fascist regime there. So like that happens over and over again. Many times in South America, we see it in the Middle East, we see in Asia, every country that tries to like democratically elect socialist governments, Western governments will always try to topple it.
No, yeah, I think these are great points. I think a lot was said tonight.
Yeah.
And
It was heavy.
I need to rewatch this episode too, because for me, this is maybe what was a selfish endeavor for me. Just I get to talk to really cool people and just learn things. So I mean, I learned a lot. I hope y'all learned a lot. And I know I wasn't able to get to everyone's questions and comments. And that happens every episode. But we do better. But I just want to say thank y'all so much for stopping by and dropping.
Thank you for having us.
Dropping
It's been really
knowledge
awesome.
on us.
And thanks for everybody who
Yeah, I also
tuned
want to
in.
say, like, if you agree with something, you say you think you have some kind of unity with us. It doesn't need
Or
to
if
be
you
100%.
even have a question, you know.
Or if you just have a question,
Yeah.
please message us. Like our Instagram is there.
Yeah.
Our
Always
our
together.
email is on our Instagram. You can
Oh,
contact
very
us
cool.
in
Okay.
any form you want, but please reach out.
And these are very open-minded people. And this
Yeah,
really
we're
cool
not
people.
elitists. We're not going to be mean to you.
That would be that would. But yeah, so thank y'all so much. Any like parting words y'all want to say to the people? I guess you kind of just did.
Is that
Or
Jason?
capitalism?
Yeah.
I love you, Jason.
Jason, I love that everyone is phenomenal, and Ali, you're a genius.
Let him about that.
But thank y'all so much, seriously. And I'll take a picture. We'll post it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
please.
can follow y'all on the gram and send
Everybody
y'all
get your
emails
titties
and-
out.
Everybody, we're gonna expose ourselves, everyone, in the picture. All right, so thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. But we'll see y'all next week. So.